Good evening, sports fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Average Joe Sports Talk Show. I am your host, Braden, and again, we have my dad here, Mark. Mark, how's it going today?
Pretty good. Nice and sunny and hot here in Southern California. So,
Yeah, I wish I could say the same, but in Rexburg it is cold and icy. So unfortunately, we don't have the gift of your good weather. All right, and today what we're going to be talking about is our top 10 all-time small forwards. So let me just go ahead and get that pulled up. And we've got a PowerPoint present. We got a little show time. We're going to do a little show and tell. So I'll go ahead and give my pick, and then we will have Mark give his pick. So if and starting off, we have my number 10 pick, which is James Worthy. Just a little look at his stats there. Averaging 17.6 points, 5.1 rebounds, 3 assists, one over a steal, shooting 52%, three-time NBA champ, seven-time All-Star, two-time All-NBA, and then he was the Finals MVP once. The reason I got him so far back at number 10 is because he doesn't have the stats and the numbers that some of the other guys on my list have. I know that that's because he played with Magic and Kareem, and so he was kind of third banana on those championship teams. So he didn't. So he didn't get to have the starring role that Magic and Kareem had. So I docked him a little bit for that. Not that he didn't have the talent to do so. He's the number one pick, but I put him down there because I'm just not super impressed with his stat line for his career. I think it was good. It was solid. It definitely got him into the Hall of Fame, and I think he could have done more given a better opportunity. But I've got him sitting at number 10. So, any thoughts about that pick?
I've got him a little higher than that, but
Yeah,
I saw him play personally, so I know what he could do. Um, and stats are only part of the story. Being a good teammate is another part of the story. So,
yeah. And unfortunately, I'm a little too young to have seen. All I can see are the highlights of the era. So, I mean, obviously, since you're around back then, you got to see his impact firsthand and see him help your Lakers win a couple championships. But for me, I pretty much am just looking. I'm looking at the stats. I didn't really have much of an eye test to go off of. So for me, it's all about the stats. And then for your pick, we're looking at Kawhi Leonard, who I was a little surprised by Kawhi Leonard, to be honest. Why do you have Kawhi Leonard at number 10 there?
well, I think he's been a an all around player on several different teams. He's been to the finals with the Spurs and Toronto, and he was able to win, and he was a big part for those wins. He's one of those guys that he's not going to be the 30 points a game guy, but he does everything pretty well, and so I mean I like his game.
Yeah. I mean, I got to admit, I'm a little surprised because I think you dinged me for taking him in my top 10 for my top 10 is taking him as my small forward. I think you dinged me for that. So I'm a little so it's a little interesting to see you have him all the way up at number 10 on this top 10 list, considering that he wasn't good enough to be my small forward today. I mean, but no, I think by the end of his career, for me, he might deserve a spot on this list by the time he retires. But for right now, I just don't think he's done enough in his career for me personally to have him put up there at my number 10. Although his defensive impact is truly impressive.
I think
Six-time
he's
All Defensive Team, two-time Defensive Player of the Year. Um,
yeah, he's been the best player on his teams for a long time now. Um, he's good. I mean, he's not the top of my list, but he's good. He deserves to be in the top 10, I think.
yeah. All right. Now we're gonna go ahead and bump on down to number 9, where I've got Paul Pierce, the truth for the Boston Celtics. It hurt me a little bit having to put the Boston Celtic on my list. But I mean, you can't, but he was a very solid player for the time. 19 points, over 5 rebounds, over steal. Shot 44%, 80% free throw shooting. Was a decent 3-point shooter. Won the championship, 10-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA. And I was one of those guys. He's one of the players I got to watch. And while he did play for the hated Celtics, I got to respect what he was able to do for them. They don't win that championship without him. He hit some pretty big shots, and then he also had his fake wheelchair injury where he had to where he got hauled off on a wheelchair and then came walking back. So I think just because I was able to watch, he's one of the guys I was able to watch him play, and it was pretty impressive what he was able to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that impressed with Paul Pierce, and maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm comparing him to the great players that I knew before him and after him, and I was like, he didn't do that much for me.
Yeah. So let's see who you got at your number 9, and that is John Havlicek. I've actually got him on my list, but I got him a little bit lower.
Higher.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry,
can't get much
higher.
lower.
Yeah, I got him higher on my list. I liked his county numbers, especially 8-time NBA champion. I think a lot of those were with Bill Russell and those Celtics. So
yeah,
I wasn't entirely.
Although his last championship was not. So he played into the 70s, and when they won in mid 70s, he was a big part of that team. Yeah, I mean, he was good. Look, he's he's an all-around player, and honestly, he's a little bit ahead of my time. But I looked at some other lists, and a lot of people had him higher than this. But he was a Celtic, so I couldn't put him up too high. But he was a good player on a good team.
Yeah. Yeah, his numbers weren't bad either. I mean, over 20 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, over a steal, pretty good free throw shooter, while shooting almost 82%. And then, 13 times All-Star, 11-time All-NBA, 8 times All-Defensive. I mean, that was before, they were really keeping track of steals for a lot of it. So, I mean, the 1.2 steals, that's only the later half of his career, I believe.
Well, and his numbers, are comparable, better than Paul Pierce's numbers. So I'm not ashamed of that pick there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that does make sense, compared to where I got Paul Pierce. But, I think, again, it comes in the fact that Paul Pierce was a Celtic. But I think a lot of his, I was able to watch him. So that's why I got him at number 9 on that list. Moving on down to number 8, where I've got Paul Arizin. This is a player I've never really heard of. I haven't really seen too much film or watched highlights on him. But, I mean, scoring, rebounding, wasn't a very good passer of the basketball. But, won the NBA champ once, 10-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA, led the league in scoring twice, Rookie of the Year. I mean, I don't think his numbers are too bad. Without knowing too much about him, though, without knowing too much about him, I sort of just went off of counting numbers. I don't know. Is that a player you had a chance to watch, or is he before your time too?
He's way before my time. I had never even heard of this guy until today. I saw him on a list or two, and it was like, I couldn't put him on my list because I have no idea who he is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I didn't know. I don't think I've ever heard of him either until I saw him on the list. But I was impressed enough by what I saw for his numbers. Especially being a 10-time All-Star. That's not something that you can laugh at.
And what team did he play on for his championship?
Looks like he was it was Philadelphia. I'm looking at him right now. I think he played for Philadelphia.
With Wilt?
Could have been. Let's see if I can. Yeah, I'm trying to see. Yeah, so that was with the Philadelphia Warriors, so it might have been playing with Wilt Chamberlain.
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't know anything about him, so I couldn't.
Well,
put him
I
on
guess
my
he came
list.
up in the night. He came in 1950. So if he did play with Chamberlain, I think Chamberlain was in the 60s. So he was probably there before
So
Wilt
he was
Chamberlain.
there in the George Mikan era. Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Yeah. He was NBA All-Star. He was an All-Star every year he played. So he played 10 seasons, was an All-Star all 10 years.
Yeah.
And had the third highest scoring average back in the day. So
it's tough to put players from the 50s into an all-time list for me because the game has evolved so much since then. But yeah, I'm sure obviously his stats are pretty good.
Yeah, pretty eye-popping. Let's see. Coming in for you, we have Scottie Pippen. He was a guy I left off of my list altogether. I wasn't that impressed by his counting numbers. Why do you got him at number 8?
Well, I think he's one of those guys that was a all-around player. He was he could pass, he could shoot, he was a playmaker, he was a good defender, rebounder. He's just had a really good all-around game, and he complemented the Michael Jordan championship teams quite a bit. And he was one of the reasons why Portland made a little resurgence there in the Shaq, Kobe era. They were, with Scottie and Sabonis, they were a pretty tough team. But yeah, just 10-time all defensive is pretty impressive, and just his all around game. And I'm not a huge Jordan and the Bulls fan, but they did win and they did play really good basketball. I mean, it was a great team concept, and I think Scottie played in with a team concept. He wasn't an isolation guy; he was a team guy.
Yeah, well, I think for me, the reason why I dock Scottie Pippen is for his lack of success without Michael Jordan. Yeah, you see, he's got 6-time NBA. He's got 6 rings, but those all came as being, he was a good second fiddle. And when it came time to lead his own team, he couldn't quite get his team to where Jordan could do it. And the Bulls, I mean, the 2 years when Jordan took off, Scottie Pippen did a decent job, but I don't think he was able to lead them to any great heights. And that was in his prime, after he had learned, after he had a couple years with Michael Jordan. So I kind of docked him for that because I want to see someone who can elevate their team and elevate their team's level of play. And for me, Scottie Pippen, yeah, he had an all around, and his all around stats are decent and okay, but I didn't see any success after Jordan.
I think he made everybody around him better. I like players like that. Yeah, was he? You take Michael Jordan off of any team, and you're losing 28 points a game or whatever, 30 points a game. That's a big number to overcome, especially if you don't have somebody that's at least partially comparable to take over for that. So I don't fault Pippen for struggling without Jordan there. With Jordan, they were pretty impressive.
Yeah, I mean, with Jordan, he was a lot, but he was able to, I feel like he's kind of like Kawhi Leonard. Scottie Pippen, Kawhi Leonard needs that alpha. Scottie Pippen needed that alpha. He couldn't be the alpha. He needed that alpha to back him up.
Well, I think championships are won by teams, not by individuals. So, great players can get a team to the finals, but LeBron has proved over and over again that even if he's as great as he is, he can't win it by himself. Nobody wins it by themselves.
Well, and that's true. But I want to see a guy be. If I'm going to put a guy on this list, I want him to be the alpha dog. I want him to be a guy that can take over and get you the clutch bucket when you need it. So I'd ding Scottie for that. But I mean, it's decent. It's a decent pick. I did have him considered for top 10, but I just didn't like his lack of an alpha dog mentality. Trucking on down to number 7, I've got Dominique Wilkins, the human highlight reel. Because he was box office. People loved to watch him play. He was explosive, 9-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA, led the league in scoring, gave Michael Jordan a run for his money in the slam dunk contests. Almost 25 points a game, 6.7 rebounds. 2.5 assists, over a steal a game, shot decent from the floor. And he's just fun to watch. I like watching Dominique Wilkins because he could just go up and dunk on someone and he didn't even care. So I got him set number 7 because, almost 25 points a game. That's not something that a lot of forwards in today's NBA are able to pull off, or even throughout all time. Small forward never really hasn't been a high scoring position. So the fact that he's able to get you 25 at that slot is pretty impressive to me.
He was a good player. I don't know if he his teams, for me, they never did anything in the playoffs, and so for that I kind of dinged him. I thought he's probably in that top 15 for me, but certainly not in the top 10.
Yeah. Let's see, over top number 7 for you. You've got you dropped James Worthy a little bit lower down to number 7. So why'd you put him down all the way at number 7?
For me, James Worthy was a key piece of those Laker championship teams in the mid to late 80s. He came in. Kareem was on the downside of his career by that time. Still an awesome player, but not scoring as much as he had. And James Worthy was just a great floor runner, a great teammate, and a great defender. Just an all-around great game and fun to watch.
Yeah. I feel like that's sort of how I feel like number 7. I kind of put my guy that I thought was fun to watch, and you got your guy that's fun to watch on James Worthy at number 7. But yeah, I thought about putting James Worthy a little bit lower, but again, I counted his stats against him a little bit there. Wasn't as impressed with the numbers that he put up, so I did ding him a little bit for that.
Yeah, I think if he was if he had needed to score 25 points a game and he didn't have the other guys around him, he could have done that because he showed that in the finals when he got the finals MVP. He was unstoppable.
Yeah.
So he showed what he could do if he was the number 1 option for scoring, and just a great defender and just a solid player.
Yeah, I did like, I do like his numbers, and I do think that, if he had been that number 1 on his team, he would have probably been a lot higher on my list. So I think I docked him a little bit, just, as I said before that. Number 6, we actually had the same idea. We both put Rick Barry. Again, a guy who's getting almost 25 points, almost 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, which is pretty impressive. NBA champion, rookie of the year, 12-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA and ABA, 1-time Finals MVP. I think I'm more familiar with his son Brent Barry. So I kind of expected that Rick Barry was going to be as good of a shooter, and I was kind of surprised that his 3-point numbers were a little bit sad as far as that goes, because Brent Barry is known for being a 3-point shooter. I figured that was something that Rick had passed on, but apparently not. But yeah, I got him number 6 because his numbers sort of popped out the page to me. Shooting almost 90.
Rick Barry played in the pre-3-point NBA.
Oh yeah, but he did have some at the end of his. I don't know if it was the end of his career, but I did see some 3-point numbers, and it was like 28% or something like that. It wasn't super impressive.
And anybody that can shoot free throws underhanded, you gotta love that.
So we're actually of the same mind there. So why did you put him at number 6?
Well, I think the numbers speak for themselves. 12-time All-Star. And the championships are a team thing, but All-Stars go to great players. And look at it. It's almost 7 rebounds, almost 25 points, almost 5 assists. So he's doing it all. He was an all-around player. And those guys are a rarity, really. But he was just an outstanding player, and he's way better player than his son. All of them.
Oh yeah. He had more than just Brent. He had more than just Brent Barry that made it to the NBA.
Yeah, John Barry.
Oh, I've never heard of that guy. I guess that tells you how good he was. I've never heard of him.
Well, he was not great, but he played.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Rick Barry was a great player
Yeah.
back in the '60s, '70s.
So that's why I got him number 6. It's good to find one that we're finally in agreement with, and I think we also are agreement on our next choice at number 5. I think we both got Dr. J, Julius Irving. Another guy who is able to put the ball in the bucket. 12-time All NBA or ABA, 16-time All Star, won 3 championships, 4-time MVP. I mean, I feel like he's someone that could maybe go into discussion of, maybe top 5 greatest of all times, but I feel like he's one of those guys that gets a little overlooked because he played in
Um,
the ABA.
yeah, I think the problem is that he was playing in the watered down ABA. The game was a little bit different. Competition was probably not quite up to the NBA standard, although there were a lot of really good players in the ABA, but just in general, um, it was a little bit more gimmicky. And so that probably hurts him overall for the all times. But I've seen him ranked higher than this, but I thought this was a pretty good spot for him to be. He was a
Yeah.
great player.
Oh yeah. I think some of his most, and I think unfortunately one of his best remembered highlights came against the Lakers when he, I think a couple of them came when the one time when Cooper thought he was wanted to jump with him for a minute, and then he's like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then the other time when he reached his hand behind the backboard and there's like 3 Lakers guys around and he just lays it
Yeah.
up and in. I mean, the guy had hops for days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
No,
he
he
did it.
was and that was at the end of his career. I haven't seen a whole lot of him in the ABA. I think he was probably more spectacular in the ABA, but like I said, it was a little bit watered down. So um, probably a little bit inflated. But yeah, he was a great player, and he did things that guys his size. He was a good ball handler and
Yeah.
a great dunker. He could get to the basket. So
Yeah. I mean,
pretty exciting player to watch.
oh yeah. So yeah. So I that's so yeah. So number 5, pretty solid pick there for Dr. J. Going in number 4, this is where I've got John Havlicek. That's where I put that Celtic guy because I was impressed by by the 13 All Star, 11 All NBA, 8 All Defensive. I was impressed by and those I feel like the All Stars and the All NBAs, those are almost longevity awards that that sort of shows how good they were for an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that's not so that's why I put him at number 4 because I liked his longevity. Able to be a 13-time All Star, and yeah, he did play in an earlier era. He did play with Bill Russell, and it's easy to be, it's easy to maybe gamble a little bit when you have a guy like Bill Russell behind you on the rim, knowing you can just block shots like no one's business. So I
Yeah,
dropped him at number 4 for that reason.
he definitely benefited from being on teams with the Celtics back in the '60s when they were a juggernaut. Um, I don't know if he gets 13 All Star nods if he's playing for the Cincinnati Royals or some other lesser popular team, but he was a good player. I had him on my list, so
Yeah.
obviously you can't argue too much with anybody in the top 10.
Well, and I think and I think that's one of the important things about the league. You look at a player like Damian Lillard, who probably should have been named an All-Star starter this year,
Mm-hmm.
but because he plays for Portland, people forget about him. No one he's
Yep.
not talked about because, and so yeah, so Havlicek maybe he doesn't have 13 All-Star appearances if he's not on a big market team, and they definitely have an advantage for being on a big market team.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's a little bit lopsided. Sitting in at number 4 for you, had Kevin Durant. That's a pretty solid pick for what he's done in his career so far. Good scorer, good shooter, good
He's
defender.
a great scorer.
Yeah, I mean, 27 points.
Yeah, 4-time scoring leader. That's nothing. I mean, he's he was the best player in his draft class, and even though he didn't go number 1, should have, but obviously he's had a great career and he continues to put up big numbers, and he's unstoppable. He's one of those guys that's unstoppable because of his size and his ability to shoot from anywhere.
Yeah. I think for me, the reason why I didn't put Kevin Durant on my list personally is because, again, like he's a 2-time NBA championship and he's a 2-time Finals MVP, and those are both happened on the Golden State Warriors, which was a super team, just super stacked with talent. So if you're not guarding Kevin Durant, you got to be guarding Steph Curry, or you're guarding Klay Thompson, or you're guarding Draymond Green. It's like that team was just so stacked full of talent that he was able to get those 2 times Finals MVPs because there was so many other weapons that you sort of had to pick your poison there. You got Steph who can shoot from inside the building. So I did ding him for that because I don't think that he's going to be. And I mean, I guess we'll see what he can do with the Brooklyn Nets. If he can take them to a championship, maybe I'll consider putting him on there as the unquestioned alpha dog on a team. But the Oklahoma City Thunder, he couldn't get it done.
Well, he got him to the finals.
Yeah, but he couldn't push him. But he couldn't get him through. I mean, that was on a pretty good team too. I mean, that was against. Granted, that was against the Miami Heat. LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh. But they had James Harden. They had Russell Westbrook. They had Serge Ibaka. You
know how I feel about Russell Westbrook.
I know, but that was back when he was still exciting to watch and not just an old broken down old man. And they also had James Harden, who was, I think he was a 6th man of the year that year.
6th man of the year. They probably underutilized his abilities, but
yeah. But yeah, if he can take the Brooklyn Nets to the championship this year, I might consider putting him on a top 10. But I think he sort of falls in the same thing with Scottie Pippen, where I mean, he's got more impressive stats than Scottie Pippen, but
as an individual player, his stats are up there with it, comparable to anybody.
Oh yeah, but I had to ding him a little bit just because I haven't seen him be the alpha dog on a playoff team, which is something that I need to see from a guy before I'm able to, put him towards the top. Moving on down to number 3, and I think we're both in agreement here. Elgin Baylor. I mean, one of the great forwards of all time. 27 points, 13.5 rebounds. 11 All-Stars, 10 All-NBAs, All-Star MVP, Rookie of the Year. And, unfortunately, he was on the team that won a ring, but he left the same year they won that ring. So he didn't get any championships, but he had the issue of playing in the same league as a lot of talented teams. I think early in his career, he was also stymied by the Celtics buzzsaw.
Yeah, his whole career was through the 60s, and they ran into the Celtics many times and couldn't quite get over that hump, unfortunately. But he was a big guy that revolutionized the game, scoring and rebounding and assists, defense, just an all-around game. He kind of was the model for guys like Julius Erving, who saw the things that he was doing and said, wow, a big guy that could run the floor and score from everywhere. And just a fantastic player. A little before my time mostly, but the highlights are impressive. And everything that I've heard about from players that played during his time, they all talked about how just unbelievable great he was. So,
yeah. Well, and the fact that he had 13.5 rebounds, I mean, that's the highest I think that's the highest of any small forward in NBA history. I mean, let alone, I think the only other person on this top 10 list is Larry Bird with 10 rebounds a game. So, I mean, that's impressive in and of itself that he's able to get that many rebounds, especially on for the latter year of his career, he's on a team that had Wilt Chamberlain. So the fact that he's still able to get 13.5 boards while you had a guy like Wilt Chamberlain who averaged 22 for his career, that's not bad at all.
No, he deserves to be up here.
Oh, absolutely. And then number 2 and number 1, I think pretty much everybody knows what they are. It's just a matter of what order you put them in. For me, I put Larry Bird at number 2. You put LeBron James, but for Larry Bird, for me, I put him at number 2 because he was an all-star, all box office player. He broke your Lakers' hearts. Was it 2 times or 3 times that he broke the Lakers' hearts?
He only played on one team that beat the Lakers.
Okay. but still, I mean,
The
38 field.
84 team beat the Lakers.
But yeah, Larry Bird, he was a lunch pail type of guy. He's a guy. He wasn't gonna to draw an attention. He wasn't gonna draw a crowd. People didn't want to. He wasn't super thrilled about media attention. And the guy could shoot lights out. I remember he'd always walk into 3-point contests saying, "All right, I got first place. Who's coming in second?" But
Yeah,
you look at his numbers: 3-time MVP, 3-time champ, 12-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA, Rookie of the Year, Finals MVP, 3-time All-Defensive.
yeah, I think that was 12-time All-Star in 12 seasons in the league. So yeah.
Yeah. So I put him a little bit. So I guess he played for 13 seasons. That he was he played for 13 seasons. So he missed it 1 year, but that might have been the year when his back was when his back had thrown out because he was fixing his mom's driveway, I think it was. Threw out his back hauling gravel. So really unfortunate that happened. But he was a guy who, I mean, I love watching Larry Bird play. He played hard nosed. He played physical. He would always talk trash. I think he might be one of the best trash talkers in NBA history.
He was the best trash talker in NBA history.
I mean, I remember hearing stories where he would tell the guy, "Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to run around to this point. I'm going to get the ball and I'm going to shoot it and I'm going to make it." And he would do exactly that. He did exactly what he said.
Well, he, and you've got him at 2. I've got him at 1. So, I've heard stories where when Dennis Rodman was trying to guard him and he scored 4 straight times and he was yelling at Chuck Daly you better put somebody on me or else I'm going to just go for 60, even though Rodman is a 2-time defensive player of the year. And even though Rodman was all over him, he's still yelling at his teammates, "I'm wide open. Give me the ball. They're going to see me here. They're going to try to put somebody on me if you don't give me the ball." So, I mean, he was a trash talker extraordinaire.
Oh yeah. I love hearing stories like that. And yeah, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. But I got him at number 2. So you got him at number 1. So what for you gives Larry Bird the edge over LeBron James for your all-time list?
For me, it's about being that go-to guy when you absolutely have to get a bucket. My biggest knock on LeBron is always that he gets great stats. And I love LeBron, but I feel like he piles up some of his stats in meaningless games or at times when the game is not crucial. And Larry Bird was that guy where if you're down by 2 and you needed a big basket with no time on the clock, he could get a shot off and make it from anywhere. And I don't see LeBron being that guy. As good as LeBron is, and as many good things as he can do, I feel like Larry could just do it at will whenever he wanted to in the most just difficult situation. He could get you that score and he was going to win. He was a winner. So I love Larry. And, it probably comes back to that was my era of watching the NBA the utmost, and Lakers and Celtics rivalry was so great. And Larry against Magic was such an awesome thing that I loved. As much as I really don't like the Celtics, I got to give respect to Larry Bird, how great a player he was.
Yeah, I think for me, I think the reason why I give LeBron James the nod over Larry Bird for me personally is I think a part of it might have been that he's sort of been the player. After Kobe, it was LeBron. That's sort of who the torch got passed to. And to be honest, I might not have. I think that LeBron being on the Lakers the last 3 years has put me a little bit biased towards him now, because before he was on the Lakers, I could not stand the guy. I would not have put him number 1. I probably would have put him at number 2. Because I got respect for Larry Bird. But with the Lakers, LeBron has shown throughout his career that he can elevate his teammates. I mean, he took a Cleveland Cavaliers team to the finals against, I can't remember who they played, but I mean, they did eventually lose in the finals. but he took a Cleveland Cavaliers team who their second best player is probably Zydrunas Ilgauskas. I mean, he was able to carry that team on his back off of his, off of the fact that he was able to do that. And I think he's always make the right play. I feel like he's the closest thing that we've seen to Magic Johnson since Magic Johnson. And I mean, I don't think he's, and I think he may have even eclipsed Magic Johnson in some areas. I know that you're going to disagree with me on that one because you're Magic Johnson. You're Magic Johnson all the way.
My head will be spinning with that. That's just that's heresy.
But I mean, if you just look at LeBron's body of work, I mean, the fact he's able to elevate his teammates, 27 points, 7.5 rebounds, 7.4 assists, 4-time champ, 4-time MVP, 16-time All-Star, 16-time All-NBA, 6-time All-Defensive, which is something I think people overlook. They want to bag LeBron as a bad defender. And his first year with the Lakers, he absolutely was. He was terrible. He didn't care about it.
Yeah, I think, and I would agree. I mean, my opinion of LeBron James has definitely gone up since he came to the Lakers. And I've gotten to see him play more than just a handful of games or a handful of minutes that I saw before. But I still, there are times like the other night, he took a ridiculous shot close to the end of the game, and it's like you almost like shoot your team out of the game by missing a three that probably didn't need to be taken when he took it. He just, if it goes in, it looks great, but if he misses it, it's like, ugh.
Yeah, well, and I feel like that's one of the biggest knocks against LeBron James is that instead of going for the rim or taking that last second shot, he's going to try to find the right guy to pass the ball to make that shot, because he feels like that's the right play. And a lot of times I think it is the right play.
Well, a lot of times he does. Yeah, he makes a lot of really good plays, and he makes the right play most of the time. And no player makes the right play all the time. So give him his due for that. He's obviously an excellent player, and you can't really argue too much with somebody that puts him at 1 or 2. I mean, he's gonna quite possibly end up breaking Kareem's record for points scored, and he's played a long time, and he doesn't look like he's getting ready to hang it up anytime soon. So
I think that's the most impressive part about him is that he's been playing for 18 seasons, and he's this season he's getting 25 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, or close to that. And he's 36 years old, played for 18 seasons, and he's still putting up crazy numbers. Like, that's just inhuman.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just like no one. Like when he got to Lakers, I thought it was gonna be a bad signing the first off because I thought, he's age 34, he's gonna hit that wall, and the Lakers are gonna pay this guy a lot of money and get nothing out of it. And he has proved me wrong for sure. He brought us a championship last year. There's a lot of people that say, oh well, he got it because the Clippers didn't make it through to the Western Conference Finals, so he had an easy road. And I'm like, why punish LeBron for something the Clippers failed to do?
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, the Lakers beat the team that beat the Clippers. So
yeah,
it's like you can't really make that argument.
Yeah,
the Clippers had as much chance to beat the Denver Nuggets as the Lakers did, and the Denver Nuggets beat the Clippers, and the Lakers beat the Nuggets. So
well, the Clippers had 3 chances to put them away, and they were up going into all 3 of those games, and they couldn't close because Kawhi Leonard, Paul George. See, there's a reason why you can't put Kawhi Leonard on your top 10 list because he fell apart in that Western Conference final.
To be honest with you, I did not watch it, so I couldn't tell you why they lost.
Yeah, I don't.
But I'm guessing it wasn't just Kawhi. I think it was bad coaching from Doc Rivers, who I think is overrated, and probably a few other things. Paul George, I don't think was healthy all year, and there's a lot of things, a lot of reasons you lose, but don't take it away from LeBron because your guys lost.
Exactly. It's like don't take away from LeBron. LeBron earned that championship.
LeBron, he stuck to it. He played extremely well, and he's a great player. No question.
Yeah, and I feel like there's another one situations where you can put either 1 or number 2, small forward. You can't. There's no real wrong answer here. It just depends off of what you value more. So since we've got those 2 guys up on the board, and that's what my list was, I don't think they need to go hop on to their next slide. They're both sitting there. You can both see their numbers. Both impressive players. So before we wrap up here, any concluding thoughts?
No, it's always an interesting argument trying to come up with the top 10, and there's always reasons for and against any players, and certainly me as an observer, I have my biases. There's probably players I don't pick because of where they played or who they played, or I wish I knew more about some, like your Azarin or whatever.
Yeah.
Never heard of him. Maybe he does deserve to be top 5. Who knows? But I couldn't do it because I don't know him. I couldn't put somebody on my list I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of fun about this is that you discover players. Like I didn't know anything about Alvin Robertson, and I had him number 10 on my all-time shooting guards. Like I knew nothing about that guy.
Mm-hmm.
I looked him up, and I'm like, holy cow, that guy's defensive. I'm like, oh my gosh, that guy's defensive. Like nobody's business. So
yeah,
for that.
It's always a struggle to put different eras of basketball players against each other because you don't know how a player nowadays going up against guys 40 years ago, the game has changed quite a bit. So, things that are common now were unheard of then, and vice versa. So who knows? But always fun.
Yeah.
It's always a debate.
Oh yeah. And I think that's what makes it so fun. It's something that, there's not a lot of news in the NBA right now, not a lot of news going on in the sports world. So it's kind of nice to just have these like fallback topics of conversation that you can always keep yourself entertained with.
Yep.
So, well, that has been our show today. Thank you so much, Mark, for coming on. I appreciate you helping out. It's always fun to have you on the show. I always enjoy it. It's always good to talk some sports.
Well, hopefully you learned something.
I don't know if I learned much, but it's definitely a fun debate. All right, guys, have a good night.